Brothers and sisters, I think I just better make a special report about this just to clarify in our position, because we've been speaking a lot about the infamous Willie Lynch letter, and we still say that's a template if you learn to understand it properly. It's almost similar to the protocols of the learned elders of Zion, where the Jews who call themselves Jews basically refer to it as they say it's a forgery. They use the word forgery. Willie Lynch, How to Make a Slave, and the Willie Lynch letter, it's a con game, right? It's a con game. It's a confidence game. In other words, many people look at this and say, well, actually some guy named William Lynch back in, 1712 on the bank of the James River. Now, here's what we call deception. It's not an outright lie, but it's a deception. There's some true things in the Willie Lynch letter. Namely, it's kind of an open source document. It's what they would call like a white paper document, as well as it's a mind fuck, right? It's a mind fuck. Fornication on the crown of the king, if you understand. It's basically the dreams, right, of somebody else's father, not the dreams of our father, but it's the dreams of someone else's father. There's such a thing called getting out ahead of the story. You probably heard that before. It goes back to the Exxon Valdez, the oil spill and everything that happened some years ago. That the worst thing about it, well, the worst thing was the polluting of the water, the air, the killing of the living creatures, by the global Leviathan and the so-called industry, the industries, but that's the Leviathan right there. We can get into that, touch on that, to really understand what these particular signs and symbols, words and names, biblical, ancient, and modern, really mean. But not to go into that aspect. I just want to just inform you that the Willie Lynch letter is a con game. It's a con game. It really wasn't. I agree with Brother Dick Gregory that it was not written back in those days, being a student of language and linguistics, both the English and the Western Gentile, as well as our Eastern and the Afro-Shemitic and the Hebraic, and you study language and you study syntax, you study how in different, how language evolves. Language goes through different changes. The way we speak today is not the way they spoke, 50 years ago, even that long. And we can see even more rapid changes as we're coming to the end of this age, of this time and space, and this thought within the divine mind is coming to a fulfillment, in this present time, what they call the end of the age, the end of the world. But I just want to just touch on this, and I'm going to go into a little more detail, God willing, to explain why it is still relevant. Why the COINTELPRO, or why the Willie Lynch, that's what it really is, why the Willie Lynch letter is still relevant. It's really only relevant if you recognize it's a con game. If you recognize what our brother Dick Gregory has already pointed out, one of the first to really point it out, but I've heard others point it out, and it does not dismiss the fact that a certain strategy is pointed out there, a certain modus operandi. Basically, that it's like the thing with the Illuminati, the New World Order, Quigley. Carol Quigley, who wrote None Dare Call It Conspiracy, where he got special access to all of the so-called insider, Freemason, New World Order, global conspiratorial, Satanist, Lucifer, whatever you want to call it, enemies, right? But he looked into their documentation and their plan for so-called New World Order and everything else like that. And he's like, why you guys are hiding this? You need to put this out there. Now, I want you to recall that. Because that connects with this right here. Why the information in it, just like the protocols of the learned elders of Zion. Even if you say that, well, this is a counterfeit, this is a fraud, this is a forgery, and all Jews are not necessarily, so-called European Jews, are not necessarily responsible for it. But then if you look at the real events happening in the world and the unfoldment, if you can see that, right? If your eyes are not wide shut, but if you actually can see that, you can see it is a rule of engagement, a blueprint. And that's what we see here in the infamous Willie Lynch letter. But for us to presuppose that, well, back there, they already had this particular plan. They had a plan basically to continue on in their illegal, as Bob Marley says, in their, illegal government, all these Babylonian Gentile world governments, because we have to recognize who we are and what's really going on. But I wanted to just point this out, that the Willie Lynch letter is the dream of someone else's father. It's not the dream of our father, right? It's the dream of the so-called great white father, right? This is like, remember back in the days when they used to have like, Microsoft Word, remember when Word was out? And every couple of months, sometime they will have like, updates where you had to update, you had to get forgot what they had called it and everything. When they found errors in the program, a patch, you had to get like a patch or something like that for your program. So when you would go online, or you had to update it, so it would like give you certain updates, like there's a virus or whatever else like that. And they saw there was a virus, and that was the rising of the Black Messiah, the God mind. They saw that the lost sheep, right, were finding their shepherd. You know what I'm saying? That the lost sheep were getting to know who they are. That they saw this change that was occurring in the lost sheeple, the black sheep of the house of Israel mentality. They began to recognize that. And they recognized that for a while. So various different strategies were proposed. Now, some say, and I think Dick Gregory says that there's a book out there where a professor met the black guy that claims to have written it. We have not read that. We have not checked that out. We'd like to check that out just to see what's what about it, and to give you all, and to share a report and share some of I thoughts on that. But we're not going to speak on that. We're just going to kind of reference this to some of the work of Brother Dick Gregory. And this does not dismiss that what we find in the Willie Lynch letter, because it's believed. You have to understand what belief is. Belief is credit. The whole credit and economic system is based on belief. It's based on faith, really based on faith, and faith is credit, right? So you really have to, this is why you have to believe in Jah, in yourself. You have to believe in God, in yourself, the God mind, the spirit of truth, the spirit of reality, to recognize when a con is a con. It's something in your spirit. I'm not talking about in your gut. That's your feelings and emotion, but something in your spirit, right? Which goes beyond just the natural, right? That's what they call the supernatural. You understand? Some will call it back in the days the Holy Ghost, right? And I'm not talking about the counterfeit European Christianity that they gave us, because this is why in many of the old time churches, though they had to have the white Jesus picture up there, the preacher used to say, close your eyes. Everybody close your eyes and let's pray. When you close your eyes, you fade to the black, right? So we had to have the white Jesus picture up there back in the slavery days. So many of the old time preachers knew what was up. They were the ones who were speaking about we're the Israelites and coming out, and you just got to go check it out. But Margaret Sangers and others saw what was going on, and they had to write a new program. They had to write a new program, right? And this is what Willie Lynch, the ideas, right? The satanic mind, the Luciferian mind that we find revealed in such documents like the Willie Lynch letter and the Protocols of Learned Elders of Zion. Well, of course, that conspiracy goes way before the so-called white man. It's just that the white man, the so-called Gentile, he's the one in the latter half of the game that has the ball. So we talk about the end of the world. We're talking about the end of the times of the Gentiles. We talk about the end of the time of the Gentiles. We're talking about the end of white supremacy. And this is why finally they give you somebody who look alike you. But he has dreams, right? He has dreams of his father, not of our father. So the Willie Lynch letter, it's a con game. I mean, it's a con game. It's a mind fuck, right? And this doesn't mean don't read it. It means break that shit down. Recognize what it really is and get off all of this spookism, right? Because this is how the devil is. The devil will pretend to be God. When you recognize that he's a devil, you say, no, I'm not a devil. But when you recognize that you're still looking at him like a devil and you're not going to change your view of him, you know he's a devil, then he's going to come out and be real devil, above and beyond, put you in fear. Because like that FDR said, there's nothing to fear but fear itself. What kind of disassociative mind fuck is that? That right there is mind control. That's what it is. Mind control, soul control. Because they know the majority of the lost sheep still are thinking with their feelings and their emotions. Right? Not their God, not the God in them. They don't believe in the God in themselves. They don't believe in the Jah in themselves. They don't believe in the light in themselves, the Black Christ in themselves. They're looking outside, right? And this is how they get caught up in the world, flesh, and the devil and become susceptible to such mind fucks and mind fuckery like the so-called infamous Willie Lynch letter. All right, more to come. Shalom. Rastafari.